I just like staying away from, especially bat guanos, because a lot of it's sourced unethically and has heavy metals, and there's some stuff you want to stay away from there.
So have you ever heard that island where they made like $1 billion or $100 billion off of seabird guano, and they mined the whole island, right? Then the whole island now is impoverished. Before that,
when I did the down to earth bat guano, a person said, "Isn't it heavy in heavy metals?" And we actually talked to down to earth, and they're like, "Well, yeah, there could be, but we have to follow like Omri standards."
What amendments have you found to be the most ethical of extraction that we can amend our soils with that will still bring in those nicer, higher quality yields?
I mean, the only way to truly get around it is...
I can't believe I'm saying this, but have you ever wondered how your dry amendments are sourced? Well, in this video, we're going to get into it. You're here with Mark Batwell, Green Goblin 510, and the rest of the team here on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook, our $2.99 membership. And if you think you need a little more one-on-one, please make sure to check out the VIP link down below in the description. Let's go ahead and get into the video, guys. Make sure to hit the join button on the bottom of every video.
This leads actually into our first question for you is preferred organic amendments. What, like when you're amending your soil, what's your super soil mix, or what's your amendment mix around that in your process?
First, when I started out, I went through and I did the Plasma Coots blend. You know how everybody's got the 1/3 compost slash vermicompost, the 1/3 sphagnum peat moss, 1/3 aeration, and kelp, neem, and a few other things that did a very basic soil recipe. And then as I learned more and more and more about organics and different amendments, I tend to mix and match a lot now, depending on what I can get a hold of easily and at a decent price. But most everything is plant-based. I don't usually use a lot of different like guanos or other organic amendments. Usually everything's plant-based or mineral-based.
This is really interesting, actually, conversation, because Dave and I have actually talked about, like, you go to the down to earth line, you can create it like a vegan blend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have, the bone meal, blood meal side, but then also, just to not to fuck with your head a little bit, but I do think about this, isn't that why in the Bible they were allowed to eat grasshoppers, right? Because isn't the grasshoppers eat bugs, or not bugs, but they eat leaf or something like that, because they eat leaf. It's the same thing. So they in that old biblical text, they consider that to also be vegan or vegetarian or something. Have you ever heard about that a little bit?
I have.
Okay, do you want to add any thoughts to that? Because I think about this one a little bit too, on the amendment side.
The veganics versus, we'll just say other. It's super hard to be, like, a lot of people are really nitpicky when it comes to what is it veganics or is it from an animal product? Like, a lot of people would say using worm castings is not veganic because you're using a casting from another animal. A lot of people would say that using concentrated humic acids and whatnot isn't necessarily veganic because you're not going to find that too often in nature unless you go mining for it, and then you'll find a small spot of concentrated humic acids. I don't usually tote the line too much on that. I just like staying away from, especially bat guanos, because a lot of it's sourced unethically and has heavy metals, and there's some stuff you want to stay away from there. And a lot of the like seabird guano, I like to stay away from a little bit too, because of the methods of collection as well as the blood meal. Most of it's me not liking the way they collect said amendment.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, is like, we have all these ingredients, we have all these different companies, and sticking to your core value. Like I said earlier, you don't have to use everything. We've done videos on bat guano and other things. And at the same time, I don't necessarily apply everything, but these are options for people when they're in these situations, and stick to those core values. It's important. You can tell you do that, and then it shows in your plants.
Oh, absolutely. So like, when it comes to, do I grow veganic or not veganic? I just try to grow clean.
Yeah, I like that. I like to grow clean, right?
You're gonna be putting that in your lungs.
You kind of brought up the whole thing about, you made a little connection for me that you're like, damn it, he just brought something up that brought a level of consciousness up that I now have to, walk the line harder, or I'm a chump, and a sellout, because I just became aware of it. I mean? It's like it's okay if you're ignorant. If you're ignorant, you don't know. It's like, it's all right. But once you become aware, then you have a responsibility in some level. And the connection I just realized, have you ever heard that island where they made like $1 billion or $100 billion off of seabird guano, and they mined the whole island, right? And then the whole island now is impoverished. Before that, it was like they had a good life, even if it was simple. But then they had this huge wealth. They misspent it, and then now everything's is destroyed. Everything's destroyed. The culture, poverty. I mean, everything is completely. Have you watched that documentary? I think it's on Netflix.
No, I have. Yeah.
Do you know what is it called? Do you know what the name of it?
I don't.
That's what you just made me realize. Is now I'm wondering, where did they get this bird shit from? Like, how did they collect it? Like, it's not like they have a bunch of bird shit under nets, and they're just
probably in parking lots near Walmarts and McDonald's. They're getting the fries.
There's some good companies that like source it themselves. Like they build bat boxes and stuff like that, and they live in like wherever they're at. So it's just dependent on what you're looking at. And it's very few companies that are trustworthy.
Doing that,
like,
yeah.
Just like with anything.
Like when we were talking.
Like, why?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying the reason why there's high metals in a lot of the guanos where they collect it is I think they cut it with a little bit of their dirt that they have there, and then they have high amounts of those metals, and that's why it ends up getting into there. So they're doing like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, especially like when like they'll send like 12 or 13-year-olds into different caves in different countries to collect the bat guano and whatnot. And you're going to get the bat guano without a doubt, but these caves are also collecting, well, everything. That's what caves are doing. Everything runs down through the earth and collects it at the lowest spot. And if you're in a cave, you're going to have excess heavy metals. You're going to have a bunch of minerals. You're going to have a bunch of sulfur. That's, you're going to scoop up some heavy metals regardless when you're harvesting it from there.
Yeah, it's kind of sketchy. I like bat boxes.
I would really love this channel to get to a point where it could one day actually travel to these other countries and see what their processing techniques are like, actually physically see it versus just, get a marketing picture where everyone's wearing a nice hard hat, all older men, and then everyone multinational. There's a black, white, Korean, yellow, Spanish, all in the picture, and they're all mining shit, and they're just like perfectly removed, perfectly set back with all the bugs, living healthy. I want to see behind that picture.
Exactly.
I don't know if you're going to want to see half the stuff like Goblin said. Some of this stuff, like I watched a documentary on mica that's used for makeup and cosmetics, and literally there are families that are digging these holes by children. Oh, I had 2 children die. It's so sad, and they get paid pennies, and then these people ship it to the US and they get paid millions and stuff. So we don't think of that with our fertilizers, but yeah, there is a thought to where are we sourcing it and how we're sourcing it. These are all concerns that we should all have and keep up front and questioning it, and that when I did the down to earth bat guano, a person said, isn't it heavy in heavy metals? And we actually talked to down to earth, and they're like, well, yeah, there could be, but we have to follow like OMRI standards, so is that parts per million or billion acceptable to you? If not, then maybe it's not a product for you. But here's a company that they're trying to follow certain guidelines, OMRI and stuff, so that you kind of mentally already know what you're getting into, but it doesn't mean the source though too.
Premix will also help render those heavy metals down a bit.
And that is the one great thing about growing in a living soil or using biology, is that biology can help with a lot of these problems, heavy metal contamination, other contaminations, like actual chemical contaminations. Now, you may not want to grow in that soil that you're trying to fix until you've done a few applications. Like there's a really awesome Jadam microbial solution in which you can go out and get a little bit of microbes from the forest and expand those in a decent like a 30-gallon tote, or depending on the size of your area you're trying to fix or amend, and apply that 2 or 3 times before you even plant anything in it. And it will cycle a bunch of the bad stuff out and cycle some nutrients and get fungal and bacterial colonies really built up before you even go to plant. And that's another great way to get your cover crops going as well. So you can use your Jadon microbial solution to get the cover crops really growing before you plant your main crop in there.
Get everything, get the engine going, get it to 5,000, 1,000 RPMs, not just that idle and dead.
You know, everyone on the channel hasn't seen, probably we've spent maybe 35 to 50 hours with one of Down to Earth's main guys, just talking to him about, diving in deeper in this product. And at the end of the talk, and then shooting and then condensing it down into like 10 minutes, I really, personally, I really felt like we did a higher level of due diligence. Even Dave just going in there and doing even deeper dive and bringing up more information, and then being able to just learn more about what's the ingredients and what's actually in it besides what's on the label, right? Because there's a lot more in these products. And again, I'll bring it back on an example, but now I'm questioning it to even talk about it. But bringing it back on how much calcium's in it, but it's not on the box, right? How much calcium's in all these other products, but they don't list it, or how many micronutrients, but they don't list it for certification reasons. And then you kind of dive in deeper. I'm like, wow, we really learned a lot here. But then in this conversation right now, it's just like now I want to go back to Down to Earth and be like, bro, you and Guy Green are the 2 largest,
distributors.
Pushers of the product. Where can we go fly over and see how they're extracting, how you're extracting your product? Like, who has the most ethical way of doing it? It would be nice. And of course, I wonder even how much they know about how their extraction processes are being used. Like, dude, are they just 20 years in their company just trying to sell their product? And I wonder how many of these are they just talking to some guy from Alabama trying to fill an order, and trying to create and you can't get dry amendments from Alabama, I'm pretty sure. But I'm just saying, maybe, I don't know. And it really makes me think a little bit more. And it really makes me want to look more to those alternatives. And you brought that up right there. Like you were saying, go to the forest, get a handful of soil, get the microbes, brew it up, and expand your microcolony. Although because of but disregards. Although, explain to me, don't we also need things like feather meal or these other amendments? Because I don't want to say bat guano or bone meal or blood meal, because those 3 are again wondering. You think about the extraction. Blood meal is like, where are they pulling the blood from? How are they killing the animals? Yada yada. You start thinking about that process. But my point is what amendments have you found to be the most ethical of extraction that we can amend our soils with that will still bring in those nicer, higher quality yields?
I mean, the only way to truly get around it is to, unfortunately, you'll have to learn quite a bit of plant identification, and you'll have to live in an area in which you have a decent amount of wildlands, because you'll just go out and harvest these materials yourself. Every plant is a bioaccumulator of some kind. Whether it's in a super accumulator or not, that's a different story. Like kelp is a super accumulator. It accumulates everything that's around itself. Some plants just like to accumulate potassium. Some just like to accumulate silica. Some like to, accumulate different things, calcium, magnesium. So if you learn about the different plants, and especially in your area, if you do have wildlands around your area, you can go around and literally collect a lot of this biomass and make your own dry amendments. Because literally these dry amendments are nothing but cut down plants at the correct time and dried out.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are weird. It's like they throw them through a grinder or whatever, and then they'll have like a powdered form of that, and then they'll cover the actual leaf material of that, like compact that together, so that way it's almost like a time release.
Mm-hmm. And basically, like, the smaller that you grind up said plant, the quicker it will break down. The easier it is for the microbes to break it down and, amend it to your soil.
So, like, just adding on to what you just said right there, I like that, because Like in my practices, and I'm curious with yours, I like to have both. I want stuff that's slow, and I want stuff that's going to be more readily available during the grow. And like what I mean by that is like oyster shell, for example, or even bigger eggshells. I don't refine it into a powder. I personally like to have that diversity. I think it helps with the structure of the soil, the drainage of the soil. What do you find? Are you always going for those extreme powders, or do you like myself, a variety of sizes? And I find pieces of shell that are probably going on 3, 4, 5 grows. It's like, but it keeps getting, it's still doing stuff. It's still breaking down the calcium and stuff. What do you find, or through your observations?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in soil building / reamending. I definitely like a variety. Just like humans, the best way for a human to remain healthy is to get a good variety of all foods.
Mm-hmm.
And same with the microbes. You get a good variety of all foods, whether it's big, small, different types of foods, different types of sugars. Variety is definitely key when it comes to like a compost tea, whether you're aerating that or making a fermented one. I like the more finely ground up materials.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Getting to a water soluble state sooner than later through your compost.
Yeah.
So.
So, for example, we can't use Serenade. Serenade is a Bacillus pumilis, because if we did, I think that would end up failing one of our microbials. So it's not approved for Canada, where I believe in California you are allowed to use Bacillus pumilis.